All right, thank you everyone for joining us tonight for the Virtual College Exploration Program with Cachet. This is the Harvey Mudd information session, so thanks for being here. Before I pass it over to the presenters, I'm going to kick us off with some housekeeping items if you have not heard these before. First and foremost, there's more sessions through Cachet through tomorrow evening, so feel free to continue to register and connect with colleges and universities on our schedule. When you do register for these sessions, you do get a barcode in that confirmation email, but know that that barcode is not necessary for any of the virtual events that you participate in. And we are recording all these sessions and posting them to our website shortly after the session concludes. So whether you want to rewatch a session you participated in or watch one you may have missed, just check back on our website. And then you'll see the Harvey Mudd team and hear them. Unfortunately, they cannot see or hear you all. This is webinar style format. So any questions you have throughout the presentation, feel free to type those into the Q&A box and the presenters will do their best to address those throughout the presentation. So I will pass it over to Tira to get us started. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. My name is Tira Briggs, and I'm the Vice President for Admission and Financial Aid at Harvey Mudd, and I will have my colleague introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Roberto Peña, an Assistant Director of Admissions here at Harvey Mudd College. I'll be in the back end answering questions for you. So see Tira for most of the presentation, if not all of it.
Thanks, Roberto. All right, so I'm going to get started and share my screen here so we can see some images. Hopefully you can all see that. All right, so what I want to start with actually is what's on this very first screen. And you'll see that we call ourselves the Liberal Arts College of Engineering, Science, and Mathematics. And what we mean by that is we are a liberal arts college. It is at the heart of every single thing that we do at Harvey Mudd, and you'll hear more about that as I talk. But what is different about us is that we only offer majors in the STEM fields, and I'll give you more specific information about that as well. But the bottom line is that we are looking for students who we know are excited about STEM. You have to be to want to go to Harvey Mudd. But on the other hand, we also want students who are as excited about working in the non-technical fields. And you'll hear more about that as well. So I do want to start on where we are located. We are located in Claremont, California, which is a small town, about 35,000 people. And we're located about 35 miles east of Los Angeles. So we're in the heart of Southern California, and it's an amazing place to go to school. As I mentioned, 35 miles to Los Angeles. We are about 45 minutes or so to things like the beaches, which you see here, to places like Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm. We are about an hour west of Palm Springs. Of course, all of this is without traffic, but you get the idea. We are also located in the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains, and it is an absolutely beautiful area. So students who want to do things like hiking, mountain biking, skiing, snowboarding, for those of you not from the Southern California area, even though, yes, it is 75 and sunny almost all year round, the mountains will be covered with snow for a good part of the winter. So you may be about 25 minutes from skiing and snowboarding, even though the weather on campus will be beautiful and sunny and warm. But it is an amazing place. LA is the third largest city in the United States, an incredibly diverse area with lots of opportunities for things like internships. And there is a train station in downtown Claremont that will actually let you just take the train into downtown LA, and it runs just about every hour. So it's very accessible as well. We are in Claremont, as I mentioned, and its official nickname is the City of Trees. Its unofficial nickname is the City of Trees and PhDs, because just about everyone in this town of Claremont is somehow connected to the Claremont Colleges, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. So you see what I'm saying there about our wonderful location with the mountains off in the distance, but in a beautiful Southern California area. We are part of something called the Claremont Colleges, and what that is the only planned college consortium in the United States. And so what that means is that we are 5 undergraduate colleges and 2 graduate institutions, and we are all located in 1 square mile. So it's not like some of the other consortia in the United States you might have heard of, where you get on a bus and you go place to place. With Harvey Mudd and the Claremont Colleges, you literally walk across the street to go to any one of the other colleges. As you see on this map here, Harvey Mudd is the furthest northern college and Pomona is the furthest southern college. And if you walk really slowly, it might take you 10 to 15 minutes to walk from Harvey Mudd to Pomona. So having the Claremont Colleges all together is an amazing resource. So I mentioned we're 1 square mile, 5 undergraduate colleges. There's over 2,000 courses available for students to register for. And this is not a case of, oh, there was one student once who might have taken a class at any one of the other colleges. every single student at Harvey Mudd will take courses at the other colleges. We have the same exam schedule, the same break schedule, the same course schedule. We make it as easy as possible for students to register for courses. And if you're registering for a course at the other colleges, you do so from our same registration system. Say you want to take an economics class, you simply click on economics and you'll see all of the economics courses offered at all of the Claremont colleges. And essentially, we give you the best of both worlds. So all of the advantages of a small college, anything you've heard of, getting to know your faculty members, an average class size of about 15, all of those things are true at all of the Claremont colleges. But as you see on the screen, we are about 6,000 undergraduate students total and another 3,000 graduate students on campus. So we have the resources essentially of a small to mid-sized university. And we share things where it makes sense to share. We share things like a library or a health and wellness center, campus safety, all of those sorts of things. And so students are constantly moving among the 5 colleges. We also share about 250 or so different clubs and organizations. Students can use their ID card at any one of the colleges to get into any one of the dining halls on the Claremont colleges. I will point out that Harvey Mudd and Pitzer actually have the highest rate of import into our campuses for meals. And so we think that says some good stuff about our food. But it also means that our students can join clubs on the other campuses, and there are an incredible sort of strong relationships that form among the campuses and among the students. We do combine in a kind of an odd way for athletics. You might think that we would have 1 team or 5, but instead we have 2. The students from Claremont McKenna, Harvey Mudd, and Scripps combine to make 1 team, and our arch rivals are Pomona Pitzer. And we are all Division III in the NCAA. And have about 21 different sports for men and women. So having the Claremont colleges just across the street is really an amazing opportunity. And you see who our sister colleges are there. Scripps College is a women's college, a very strong interdisciplinary program. Claremont McKenna College is known for very strong programs, excuse me, in international relations, economics, government, but they are also a comprehensive liberal arts college. Pomona College, the largest and the oldest of the Claremont colleges, is also a very strong traditional liberal arts college, very comprehensive. And Pitzer College is known for a lot of student leadership, social justice, very, very interdisciplinary. Students have a lot of control in deciding how that college is run. So altogether, we really complement each other extremely well, and they're a huge resource for all of us. Going back to Harvey Mudd though, here is our first year class, I believe from last year. We are the smallest of the Claremont colleges. Now we have 900 undergraduates, and in a little bit I'm going to tell you why it matters that we're entirely undergraduate. We were founded in 1955, so just a couple years before the launch of Sputnik. The idea of having a really strong interdisciplinary program with strong math, science, and engineering seemed to make a lot of sense at that time. We're extremely proud of the fact that we are 50% female, 50% male. And that we have an 8-to-1 student-teacher ratio. So again, the strong things about being in a small college, but the resources of a much larger one. My admission tip for all of you today as you're starting or continuing your college search is, as you get more colleges on your list, take one moment to read the mission statement of each of the schools you're considering, because in one sentence, you're going to get a sense of what the college values. And someone somewhere at the founding of the colleges took time to distill the values into just one sentence. And you see our mission here. Obviously, engineers, science, and mathematicians are something that is important, but equally important to us, humanities, social sciences. I would also add the arts to that. And we focus very much on students understanding why they're doing the work they're doing and understanding the impact of their work on society. So that drives all that we do. Students ask us what we're looking for in the admission process, and this really is at the heart of everything we are looking for. We believe that our curriculum reflects the mission of the college, and it's roughly split into a third, a third, a third. So a third your major, a third the core curriculum, and a third what we call HSA, humanities, social sciences, and the arts. And this is roughly how it breaks down. So you do have major courses and humanities, social sciences, and arts courses sort of going all the way through. Although students do not declare their major until the end of your sophomore year. So, and actually students are not allowed to declare their major until the end of their first year. So we really do try to make sure that students come in thinking broadly and in an open way. And as part of the core curriculum, you will study in every single department we offer. And speaking of the core curriculum, here it is. And I have to admit, I love sharing this slide, especially when I have a live audience in front of me, because for many of our students, when they see these courses, they actually light up. Some students, I think, might look at this and think, oh my gosh, I have to take all of these courses. But for students who are excited about Harvey Mudd, I think they often look at these courses and think, oh my gosh, I get to take all of these courses. So as I mentioned, the core, it's 3 semesters long. You study in every single department we offer so that by the time you declare your major, you can make a much more informed decision about what you want to study. But we do have a policy that before you get to us, that you have already taken a year of calculus, a year of chemistry, and a year of physics. Now, we don't dictate at what level those courses have to be, but as you can see from the courses that are there, where you jump in at Harvey Mudd is at a pretty high level. So we do assume that students have that knowledge coming in. But this allows us to really ratchet up the start of the core so that you don't spend any of your time at Harvey Mudd recreating any of the things that you've done in high school. But that's the core as it stands now. There are some changes in the works, but we're not sure when those changes are going to take place. This is what it will look like for the coming year. I mentioned before that we only offer majors in math, science, and engineering. And so that makes us very, very different from most liberal arts colleges. And as I mentioned, you don't declare until the end of your sophomore year. And so here are some of our majors: biology, chemistry, a joint major in biology and chemistry, and mathematical and computational biology, computer science, a joint major in math, computer science, math, and engineering, and then mathematics, physics, and a joint major in math and physics. That is our newest major. Now again, something else that makes us a little bit different from other liberal arts colleges is most students at Harvey Mudd do a single major. It is possible to do a double major, and it is even possible to do 1 major at Harvey Mudd and 1 major at one of the other Claremont colleges. So that's a possibility as well. But most students will do a single major at Harvey Mudd, and that gives them a chance to go as in-depth as they possibly want. And you can even major in something not at Harvey Mudd. It's called an off-campus major, where you go through our core curriculum. You may decide that you don't want to major in something we offer, but you don't want to leave the college. In that case, you declare a major at one of the other colleges, and only in that case would you declare a minor at Harvey Mudd in one of our major areas. And actually, we don't have minors in any other circumstance other than that. So I mentioned before that we are entirely undergraduate, and then I was going to tell you why it matters. You see here that 100% of our students do research. This is where it matters that we're entirely undergraduate. Largely what I mean by that is that you are never taught by a graduate student. We don't have them, so all of our faculty members are doing the teaching. It means that all of our faculty members are doing research in their own fields, and if they were at a larger place, they might actually have, might actually be turning to their graduate students for research. At Harvey Mudd, instead, they turn to their undergraduate students. And so you can start early on research opportunities. We also have about 200 students on campus every summer doing fully funded research, working with faculty members. And then every student at Harvey Mudd will do senior capstone research at some point. I want to highlight two of the way our senior research happens. One is that students who major in things like biology, chemistry, pure math, pure physics, they're likely to do a senior thesis. That's very often sort of publishable research that is done not piggybacking on your faculty members' research. And then we have something for our more applied fields, computer science, engineering, called the clinic program. And the clinic program is essentially where companies, like some of the ones that you see here below and many others, they pay Harvey Mudd each year to have our students in groups of 4 or 5 take on real life research problems for them. 10 to 12 patents come out of these projects every year. Our students' names are on the patents. It's an amazing opportunity for our students. One of my favorite examples is one from a few years ago now, several years ago now, where essentially the Oregon Biomedical Engineering Institute asked our students to address the fact that the #1 cause of death on the battlefield is arterial bleeding. They wanted our students to design an instrument that could be carried by a medic that could be used to stop bleeding in a soldier long enough to get the soldier into surgery. So what the students designed, it's sort of like a large hypodermic needle. They filled it with tiny sponges, and they coated those sponges in a protein commonly found in jellyfish, which induces clotting, so that when the sponges were injected into the wound, between the expansion of the sponges and the clotting, it formed a solid bandage or an injectable bandage. If you Google or Bing injectable bandage, this is what you'll see. Stop bleeding in the soldier could be transported, remove the bandage, and operate. So it goes directly back to our mission and that idea of understanding the work that you're doing. in your field. One quick thing I'll mention that I should have mentioned before is our engineering program is also different at Harvey Mudd, and that you don't major in mechanical engineering or civil engineering, you major in general engineering. And we do that very intentionally so that when you graduate, you are not pigeonholed into only one aspect of engineering. All students will have a strong background in engineering so that you can go on in any field. It has never been a disadvantage for our students. They have a differently titled degree. What we hear constantly from engineering firms that hire our students is they value the fact they're able to move among disciplines. And that's been a key part of our program since we were founded. This is just a quote from one of our computer science professors highlighting what undergraduate research means at Mudd. And again, this idea of our students owning their own research project and not just sort of glomming on to a graduate student's project. I mentioned humanities, social sciences, and arts as being core to all that we do. And in fact, all students at Harvey Mudd are required to declare what we call a concentration, just sort of a minor in some aspect of HSA, as we call it. These are the different areas, although students can design their own as well. And the idea is that it's sort of 4 or 5 courses in one area that will allow you to dig more deeply. The most popular ones tend to be economics. Our students do like numbers, of course, but almost equally popular is music. And in fact, one of the last times we looked at the statistics, 1/3 of all the musicians in Claremont were Harvey Mudd students. So we're very disproportionately represented in that area. And there are 2 full orchestras at Claremont. One housed at Scripps and one housed at Pomona. To talk a little bit about our student culture, these are just a few of the things that I wanted to highlight. We are one of a handful of colleges in the country to have a student-run honor code. So what that means is that all of our students sign the honor code within hours of becoming a Harvey Mudd student. It means that there's an incredible sense of trust in our community. And it also means that most of our exams are unproctored. So literally a professor will hand you or send you an exam and give you the opportunity to take it wherever you want. You could be sitting on your bed, you could be sitting next to someone else in your class at a table taking the exam. We have an incredible sense of trust, as I mentioned. It also means that in terms of the residential end of campus, students watch out for one another. There's an incredibly strong sense of community. Collaboration is key to everything we do at Harvey Mudd. Almost all of the work that you do will be in groups. Very little of it, except maybe your senior thesis, for example, will be done on your own. We believe that that's a crucial skill, especially in today's world, as we're sending you out into the job and into graduate programs. And then support is also key. Rigor is, there's a lot of rigor, I guess I should say, at Harvey Mudd. You'll hear about that, you'll read about that if you read about us. We have a rigorous curriculum, but it is not a highly competitive what you get kind of place. It's an incredibly supportive environment. We've been described as the sort of the STEM version of leave no one behind. It's everyone's job to bring everyone along with them. We are very much a residential campus. 98% of our students live on campus all 4 years. And one of our key beliefs is that all of our years are in all of our dorms. And what I mean by that is we don't have first-year dorms where we isolate the first-year students. Every dorm has first-year students through seniors. And part of the reason we do that is, especially for things like the core curriculum, we want you to be surrounded by other people who have done the same things that you've done. So if you have a question on the core, you can walk out into the hallway and say, I need help on number 17. Everyone in your dorm will have done number 17 at some point. And so you're going to get a lot of support that way also. And dorm life is key. We have 9 different dorms on campus, and each one has a pretty strong different personality that students attach to. Some students find their dorm and find their people and stay in that same dorm all 4 years, and other students will actually switch every year, and that's up to students to decide how they want to do that. All right. The outcomes for Harvey Mudd are pretty extraordinary. We have among the highest percentage of students from any liberal arts college, of students who go on to get their PhDs. Our alums have among the highest average mid-career salary of graduates of any college or university in the country. You'll see some remarkable salary numbers there, and especially that median salary for last year's class of $107,500. And that's the starting salary, I should point out. Part of the reason you would think that's not surprising. We are a math, science, engineering college. Of course, students might have higher salaries, but we also believe that our students get these higher salaries, get these jobs, get into these grad programs because they graduate with a set of 4 skills that distinguish them even from other high-level math, science, engineering schools. One I've already talked about, they know how to collaborate. They know how to lead a team and be part of a team. 2, they know how to work across disciplines, partly because of our general engineering program and mainly because of our core. Also, our students know how to communicate. So they are often the translators in their office. So what we hear, this is what we hear repeatedly from companies that hire our graduates. They can do all the very high level technical conversations, but they also know how to translate the work they're doing for someone who may not have that same background. And finally, they know how to write. I know it's a stereotype of STEM grads that they may not know how to write, but we work with our students very early on in their time at Harvey Mudd. In that very first semester in the core, there's that course called Writ 1. It's 8 students and 1 professor, or 2 professors and 16 students. And the idea is to let students know that writing isn't relegated to the non-technical field. So some pretty extraordinary outcomes for Harvey Mudd. Some quick details about our application process and admission. We do require the common application or the coalition application. I do want to highlight just a couple things that make us really different here. One is that we do require 2 academic recommendations. That doesn't make us different, but what does is we go back to our mission statement and we require that one of those recommendations be from a math or science teacher and the other one come from a humanities, social sciences, or arts teacher. We want that idea of balance, and we want to hear from those HSA teachers about how you are in those classes as well. I mentioned that requirement about calculus, chemistry, and physics. And for this year, in recognition of everything that is going on, we are ACT or SAT test optional for all students, and that is completely up to you. You will not be at any disadvantage if you are not able to take those tests. We do not want students to risk their safety to take these exams. We made the decision earlier this year that in the announcement that we will not be considering SAT subject tests anymore. So it does you no good to take them for us. So we really want you to focus on your safety and your health and focus more on your academics, more on those sorts of things than any one test. You'll see that we do have 2 rounds of early decision. There is no difference between those 2 rounds. It's just a matter of timing, but like all early decision programs, they are binding. So we expect that you will withdraw your applications to other colleges if you're accepted through those rounds. And then finally, for financial aid, we want to make sure we are an expensive education. I would certainly acknowledge that, but we want to make sure that cost is not something that's going to stand in the way of any student who wants to attend Harvey Mudd. We are need blind in our admission process for all of our domestic students and permanent residents, which means we make all of our admission decisions without any knowledge of a student's financial need. We do guarantee that we will meet 100% of your demonstrated need for all students, both international and our domestic students. And we do have limited need-based aid for our international students as well. We also have both merit aid and need-based aid. And most of our merit aid packages do not require an application, but we do 3 that you see there, the President's Scholars Program, and then both of our robotics scholarships for students who have participated in either FIRST or VEX robotics. And one thing that I will point out is that we have a 0% default rate on our loans. That goes back partly to what you saw before about the earning potential of our students, and also the fact that we do package students with loans, but we package students with the bare minimum of loans that the federal government allows. And so our students who do graduate with debt graduate with a very manageable amount of debt. Impact of COVID-19, like so many schools, of course, we are not open right now. This fall, we will not be having any in-person visits or anything like that, nor will we be doing any fall travel. But however, we do have a lot of different ways for students to connect with us. Virtual interviews, virtual office hours, one-on-one appointments with admission counselors, information sessions, and several virtual tours. And what we want you to focus on is your health, your family, focus on the things that matter. We are always here to answer any questions that you might have. So please don't think that however your school ended last year, whether you graduated with grades or with pass-fail or whatever's happening this year will put you at a disadvantage. We're just going to be looking for some explanation from you and your school about what that meant to you in this year in terms of how your grading was done. But we're going to figure that out together. So try not to worry too much about that. So I will end there. So I hope if you are a student who is excited about math, science, and engineering, but not to the exclusion of anything else, but also wants a very small but highly collaborative environment in really the most amazing setting of Southern California, we hope that you will check us out. And now I will ask Roberto to start feeding me some questions.
All right, Tara, thank you for your presentation. I think a question that I saw a couple of times was, can you talk a little bit more about the general engineering program?
Oh, sure, absolutely. It's interesting. It actually goes back to the Mudd family because they were copper miners in Cyprus, and their frustration was that the engineers with whom they worked only knew one thing. So if they had an interdisciplinary engineering problem, which let's be honest, just about all of them are, they had to bring 4 people to Cyprus or find 4 people to Cyprus to solve these issues. So this has been our founding vision about the engineering since we started. And what it means is every student will come in, and as I mentioned, every student takes an engineering course as part of the core, but students who decide to go on to be engineering majors, you will take theory courses, you will take design courses, you will take systems courses, so you will have that broad background. That being said, students can use their electives within the engineering major, and most students will do this to focus in on a specific aspect of engineering, but their degree will not be called mechanical or civil, it will still be called general engineering. But students can focus in, and most students will do that. But we think it's even more valuable to have this really broad-based engineering education that's not going to narrowly focus you. Honestly, very few engineering students know what they want to do when they come in either. So this leaves them those options.
Awesome. A couple questions about double majoring and what that looks like at Mudd and maybe the Claremont Colleges.
Sure. Double majoring, as I mentioned, it's not very common at Harvey Mudd, and it really depends on what those 2 majors are, what it might look like. It is almost impossible if engineering is one of your majors, that has the most requirements, and so that can be a challenge. But we have had students, for example, who have done engineering at Harvey Mudd and dance at Scripps. We do have students, the reason we have the joint majors that I mentioned, the biology and chemistry, mathematical and computational biology, math and physics, and math and computer science, is for years, many students were doing double majors in those areas. So what we decided to do is streamline them, remove any of the duplicate courses, and allow students to have an easy path through, where if you do a single major or joint major, you still have that one capstone project. Often if you do a double major, you may be expected to do 2 capstone projects, which is a lot of work. But you can do a double major at Harvey Mudd, and you can do a major in something at Harvey Mudd and something at one of the other Claremont colleges. It's just not as common as you might find at other places.
Question about if a student is interested in entrepreneurship, social innovation, what resources can he or she benefit from at campus?
Sure. Entrepreneurship is huge at Harvey Mudd. We did a survey several years ago now of our alumni, and we found that 2/3 of our alums, either while they were at Harvey Mudd or since they had graduated, had started a company. And that is, I think, very much due to the way we educate our students. That said, we also have, we do have courses in entrepreneurial studies, or I guess that's the closest thing I would call it. But we also have something called HNC Inc., which is run by some Harvey Mudd alums that essentially helps students get companies off the ground. And so students will take advantage of that as well. The other big advantage for us is our alumni network itself. I mentioned 2/3 of our alums have started a company, and they are very often, they're open to having students reach out, get some advice about how that might work. We have an Office of Career Services that will connect students with alums. And then we have these 2 career fairs, for example, or 3 career fairs now on campus every year, where on average, we may have, at one career fair, we may have more corporate recruiters on campus than we have students entering the workforce. And a lot of them are alums. And so they may come back and they'll also work with students who are interested in whether it's starting a company or making a connection, learning more about a field. So there's a lot of different resources. And I will also say, one of the advantages of being part of the Claremont Colleges is as you're entering the world of looking for jobs, well, of course, Harvey Mudd alums are going to be excited if they're going to be interviewing you, but you would also find that alums from any of the other colleges are going to be equally excited to find someone who's gone to one of the Claremont colleges. So it really broadens the alumni network.
On a similar note, I think someone asked about, in your view, pros and cons of sharing resources across all Claremont colleges.
I honestly do not see a whole lot of cons about sharing resources. I mean, I think one of the neat things about us being a planned consortium is that as each of us was added to the consortium, and it started in 1887 with Pomona, and then Pitzer was the last of the undergraduate colleges in 1963. As each of us was added, there was a reason and a need for each, and each of us complements the other. I mean, the math department, I think, is one of the best examples of this. Is, of course, every one of the colleges has a math department, But we know that we don't all need to have a faculty member that teaches combinatorics. I mean, Harvey Mudd does. But when the math departments are hiring, they look around Claremont and say, what do we need? What is missing? What, where are the areas of interest lying? And that's a huge resource for our students. And not to mention, I think just having, Harvey Mudd is small, 900 undergraduates, as I mentioned. And there are times I think, for some of you listening, I'm sure we are smaller than your high school, and in some cases, maybe even smaller than your high school graduating class. So if students are feeling like we're feeling too small, they literally can walk across the street. There's 4 other campuses, 5,000 additional students. And so I think that's a huge advantage. I think one of the only disadvantages, and I don't mean this to sound sort of, I don't know, cheesy, but is that there's just an incredible amount to do. And I think our students figuring out how to balance all of the things that are going on can be a challenge. For some students, their social life is largely on the Harvey Mudd campus. For most students, it's going to be a mix of Harvey Mudd and the other Claremont colleges for social life.
On that same topic, Tara, I think kind of like a two-pointed question. Can you talk a little bit about the vibe of Harvey Mudd students and the type of clubs and sports that the college offers?
Sure. The vibe of Harvey Mudd, I think that some of the words that people use to describe Harvey Mudd, I mean, obviously our students, I'm from New England, so I'll say they are wicked smart. They are incredibly smart, but they are also some of the most humble students I have ever met. So one of the things we often hear about from recommendations from teachers and from counselors about our students is that, yes, even though they were very smart, they were at the top of their class, whatever, they were also the students who noticed that someone in their class was struggling and reached out to help them. So it's this kind of support and help that kind of, excuse me, that kind of goes through the entire campus. I think the other part is they are very funny. They take their work very seriously. They don't take themselves very seriously. We do have a lot of quirky traditions. I mean, obviously, like most other STEM schools, you may have been hearing about, pranks are very big at Harvey Mudd. There's a strong pranking culture. There are rules about pranking. The pranks have to be reversible within 24 hours. You can't prank someone anonymously, excuse me. So there's a lot of different pieces there. But I think the collaborative piece of Harvey Mudd is also really key to who we are. It is very common to see students on the lawn that you see sort of in front of you right now, on the lawn working together. There's no competition, no what you get kind of environment. Students are really supportive of one another. So I think that's the vibe. In terms of clubs and sports and things like that, the advantage is just about anything you can imagine will be offered at one of the Claremont colleges. On the Harvey Mudd campus, for example, one of the most popular intramural sports is inner tube water polo. That takes the hard part out of water polo, the staying afloat part. But equally popular music performances. We figured out at one point there are about 200 different music performances among the Claremont colleges in a given year, so more than you find in a lot of small cities. We also have things like Human versus Zombies, which is a game that happens 2 or 3 times a year, largely on our campus, but sometimes on the other Claremont campuses as well, where essentially it's the job of students, sorry, the job to turn humans into zombies, and it involves essentially like throwing socks at them, and it's sort of quirky and odd in that way. I would also note that a lot of the diversity inclusion groups are extremely popular on our campus and in Claremont, and I think that's another huge advantage, is having, for example, the Office of Black Student Affairs, the Chicano Latino Students Association. You have a strong population on our own campus, but you also benefit from having the resources and the community of the other campuses as well. And then we also have things on our campus called Wednesday Nighters, which is where students are able to perform for their friends and their classmates. And it can be anything from speed Rubik's cubing to hula to stand-up comedy, a lot of improv theater, things like that. So there's a lot going on. But I think the whole thing is sort of under, there's a strong sense of collaboration, humor, some quirkiness in some cases.
Sounds great. I do hope that those socks are clean too.
They are clean, yes. We do find them on the lawn, so they have to get them to pick them up.
I have a question. Can you talk a little bit more about the different dorms at Harvey Mudd and what that looks like?
Sure. So we have different offerings of dorms. Like I've said, there are 9. There are 4 what we call inner dorms, and they are very creatively called North, South, East, and West. I will point out that South is not south of anything. They just thought we should have a South because we had a North and West and an East. And those dorms are sort of more traditional dorms, meaning like a row of rooms, shared bathrooms, that kind of thing, in a central courtyard. Those were the first dorms that were built on our campus. The 5 outer dorms are a combination of similar dorms to that, but they also have, many of them also have suites. We had our newest dorm called Drinkward. When it was built, we asked the students, what do you want? Do you want like the suite set up? Do you want the row of rooms set up? And they said they wanted both. So that Drinkward is different in that they have one half of it is suites and the other half is that row of shared rooms and bathrooms, that sort of thing. And I mentioned that every dorm has its own personality. And I think that students, I mean, it really depends. I mean, it depends sort of what kind of atmosphere you want, but I think the returning students often will fill in the new incoming students, although they figure it out pretty quickly. If there's a certain kind of dorm that you want, whether it is a game, you know, a dorm where gaming is really popular, you might, that's board games or video games, whatever, you might want to end up in East, you know, for a lot of our athletes, for some reason, end up in North. But there are people who break these stereotypes of the dorms in every single dorm. But it is, I think dorm life is also key to a lot of social life on campus because the dorms organize a lot of the parties. I should also mention that most of the parties at the colleges are open to students from all of the colleges. And you know, you bring a bunch of engineers together and the parties are very creative. So, but yeah, dorm life is key to what happens on Harvey Mudd's campus.
And I still sticking to the topic of student activity and student life. Can you talk a little bit more about study abroad and what that looks like and number of Mudders that may do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So study abroad is a growing thing at Harvey Mudd. For years, it was not a very popular option for our students. And I still think at a lot of STEM institutions, there's this rumor out there, a myth, that you can't do STEM education and study abroad because you're somehow going to get off track. That is absolutely not true. Any student who wants to can study abroad. And we're getting close to about 20% of our students who are studying abroad each year. Last year, ironically, was our highest year, which unfortunately they had to come back. But it is a growing number for us. The only, for example, with engineers, there are certain, all the majors, but engineers specifically, there's certain courses you need to take. And so it may dictate that engineers who study abroad will only study abroad, say, second semester in the spring rather than in the fall. But anyone who wants to can study abroad. We also have, for example, Pitzer College has a number of study abroad programs, and a number of our students will go on Pitzer programs as well. Some of our students who have not been studying a foreign language, we have plenty of options for students where programs are in English. There's a really popular program in Budapest, which is a math program, but it is also taught in English. So students will take advantage of that as well. You can go anywhere you want. You just have to make an arrangement to make sure that the credits will transfer back. And we have a person whose entire job it is to make sure that students who want to study abroad can do that.
I think there's a couple of questions about internships and clinic project. I'll focus on internships, but co-ops or internship opportunities at Mudd?
Sure, we don't, I mean, it's sort of like the co-op, we don't have a co-op program like you might hear at sort of Northeastern University or anything like that. The clinic is the closest thing we have, but the difference is the clinic is one of your 5 courses in your senior year. And if you're an engineer or an engineer, you'll be doing clinic for all of your senior year and half of your junior year. But internships are a huge option for our students. And sometimes they don't happen quite as often during the year, although it is a possibility as they do during the summer. Partly because, as I mentioned, the workload is quite heavy at Harvey Mudd. But again, the Office of Career Services will help students who want to get an internship either during winter break, which lasts an entire month, or during the summer to help facilitate that. And where we're located, again, we are a huge technology region. I mean, people think of Silicon Valley often, but Southern California and the LA area is a huge technology region as well. So there's lots of opportunities for students to do internships there.
On that same topic, Tara, I saw a question about how do you choose or how are you picked for the clinic program for the
question. In a typical year, we normally have anywhere around 50 or so clinic projects that are available. And essentially at the beginning of the year, students will get a list of all of the different clinic projects and you will send back your priority. I think it's something like your top 3 or 4, something like that. And normally students will get their first or second choice. Of course, there are always some years that there's a couple that are incredibly popular. But students, and so the engineering program, by the time they're placing you in this way, they know you incredibly well. So they are also looking at who do they think will work well together, what are students interested in, what fits with the direction that students are going in. So it's actually an incredibly personalized and careful process that happens. And the work that students are doing is absolutely amazing. But that's the way it happens. Is it's students do have an option, but you're placed on it by the engineering program. And I should also mention we have also have a global clinic program, which involves either our students doing work for a company that's overseas, or sometimes they're pairing up with students from an international university to work on a clinic program project.
Thanks, Tara. Question about how many students are accepted per ED round and what that looks like if there's space in regular decision?
Yeah, we don't usually break down the ED statistics by ED1 or ED2, but I can let you know that between the two rounds of early decision, on average, we bring in about 37, 38% of our class typically between those two rounds of early decision. We do try to keep the majority of the spots open for regular decision, knowing that that pool will be much larger. And in most years, the admission rate, the difference between the admit rate for early decision and the admit rate for the overall admit rate is not hugely different. I know it is at some schools. That has not been the case of Harvey Mudd, but it's hard to say in any given year what's going to happen because we never know what the ED pool is going to look like. Typically, ED1 is larger than ED2 in terms of number of applicants, but we have had a couple of years where that has been switched as well.
And then can you talk a little bit about the breakdown, or you don't have to go into specifics, but non-California residents versus California and the statistic of that?
Sure. Yeah, normally we are about 35% California and about 65% from everywhere else. We are about 8% international, on 8 to 10% international in any given year. This year's entering class, perhaps not surprisingly, is a higher percentage of California. I think it could have something to do with students wanting to be closer to home, but on average, it's about 35%.
On that same topic of being closer to home and students choosing that, are you getting a bunch of deferrals this year? And that look like
we are. We do have more than we often see. Not surprisingly, we did not limit deferrals. We wanted to make sure that any student who would have an option of deferring if they wanted. So we do have a larger number than we normally have. We don't know yet how that's going to impact in terms of our decisions for next year. We don't know how many of the deferring students are going to stick with us. Obviously, we hope they all do because we're excited about them. But we don't know how that's going to affect our admission process for next year. We're going to have to wait and see.
On a slightly different note, Tara, can you talk a little bit about what, if a student is interested in pre-med, and what would that look like for a student who wants to go to medical school?
Probably going to be one of our last questions looking at the time here. So pre-med at Harvey Mudd is really interesting, partly because we actually give you this is interesting, we actually give you way more math and science than most pre-med programs, most medical schools are looking for. So it all depends on what kind of pre-med student you want to be. If you are a pre-med student who is considering something like an MD PhD program, we are amazing in that regard. And we do have students who will do that. But we do not have a whole lot of sort of more traditional pre-med students. On average, it's just a few each year who will be applying to med school. And that's for a couple of reasons. One is that some pre-med students are kind of like, well, you know, I think I like science and I want to be a doctor. You can't really sort of think you like science and go to Harvey Mudd because it's a lot of science. About 70% of our curriculum is math, science, and engineering, and 30% or so is humanities, social sciences, and arts. So in that way, we need someone to want what Harvey Mudd does and want to be want to go to medical school. The other thing, which I'll be honest about, is there isn't a whole lot of grade inflation at Harvey Mudd. The average GPA for students when they graduate is about a 3.4 or so. And for any other kind of grad school we've ever dealt with, that has not been an issue. It's Harvey Mudd, they understand. We actually send a letter out with every transcript that explains sort of why the grades look like they do, and it's never been an issue. Medical schools have had a harder time getting past that. Now, all of that being said, we have an amazing pre-med advisor who will work with students from the minute you identify yourself as a pre-med student. They make sure that you have all the courses you need, that you are counseled in the way you need, and we do have students every year who will go to medical school. It is common both at Harvey Mudd and at most colleges that students won't go immediately onto medical school. They may take a year or two, figure out what they want to do, and then go. But we do have many doctors who have graduated from Harvey Mudd and many people who have gone on to medical school and gone on to do research. So it's certainly an option as well. I think that might be just
it.
Unless you have a very quick question there.
Just like
Roberta.
Final tidbits or final, like, I think there's questions about like app tips, but we can spend a whole lecture on.
Yeah, the one application tip I will share with you, and this, it sounds like common sense, is that for your essay, for example, we do look very carefully at that, but you just need to write about something you care about and that you're excited about. If you're excited about it, we're going to be excited about it too. And be as authentic and genuine in your essay, in your application as possible, because that way we're going to do a better job of determining whether Harvey Mudd would be a good fit for you. We read every single thing you send us. We are always excited to do so. And we're eager to learn more about the students who are coming in. We're very excited we'll be welcoming our new students in about a week and a half.
Like that's all the time we have, Tara.
Yes, alrighty. Thank you so much for being here this evening. That was great, Tara, and sharing all this great and valuable knowledge with the group. For those who are still on, as you exit the Zoom meeting, you will be taken to a quick survey. It's only 4 questions, so we hope to hear your feedback regarding this particular session. And as I mentioned in the beginning, feel free to sign up for more sessions through tomorrow evening, hosted by Cachet, and all of our recordings will be available on our website. I'll be sure that the Harvey Mudd team gets your information, as well as the questions that were submitted throughout the presentation, so personal follow-up can happen. But other than that, I hope everyone has a great evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. And thank you once again so much to the Harvey Mudd team for being here tonight.
Thanks so much.
Have a good one.
Thank you for having us.